Hey folks, this is Robert Crum again. Today what I'm first going to do is I'm going to explain to you what is the term educational assault. Here's the most important thing that we need to understand. The word assault can be used in many fashions. And the fashion that we're going to use that term today is a teacher intentionally depriving a child of a legal right to a fair and equitable education. Now you're saying, well, how does the assault happen? That's an action. That's correct. It's where a teacher intentionally goes out of their way to not do what's in the child's interest, and what the law says is the child's right. So, let me start off like this. We have 4 machines. Okay? These 3 machines are new. Okay? They're easy to get going, they're easy to start. This machine takes 20 minutes to get primed, to get started. Okay? It's not new. Well, here's the thing. Each machine has a record. It has a recording device. Okay? These recording devices represents children's grades. Okay? This one gets an A. This one gets a B. This one gets a C. Okay? Now, the teacher comes along and says, I don't want to do all the stuff it's going to take to get this machine going. So for this week, the child gets an F. Okay? Well, the school district comes along, and reviews all these records. And the teacher is able to say, this child, or this machine, deserves a right to an I.E.P. I.E.P. stands for Individual Education Plan. Okay? Why do you think that matters? Is because there's dollars attached to it. Okay? Now, these are extra dollars. Alright? Which is supposed to help improve this 20 minutes of startup time to as close to as 0 as these other children or these other machines. Alright? Now, you're saying, well, how is it this is an assault? Because the law says that the district is supposed to tell the teacher to not treat this machine or child different. Now this child gets a few exceptions. So let me give you an exception to what they get. So let's just take English. Okay? The children reads a book report. Okay? And the child on the good machines, they give a detailed. Okay? The child that has an I.E.P. only has to give the concept of the book. What was the book about? The very basic concept. The teacher doesn't have the right to demand the same as this. But as long as the child gets the concept, the child gets a grade. Okay? But if the teacher treats the old machine, this machine, the same as these, we get an F. Why? Because the child has a learning disability. The child learns different. I learn different than my students, my peers, when I went to school. I have a learning disability. It's the reason why I'm doing the videos instead of sitting here and typing this all out. Because I can't do it. But I can give you a visual explanation. So now, how do we get this to where this child gets confidence? Because that's what we want the child to have. The confidence to feel equal to those children that are getting the A's, B's, and C's. We don't make the requirements as stringent. I know that's very hard for people to understand, so let me give this to you. So you're born. Your mom and your dad brings you home. Okay? How'd you learn to speak? By watching your parents' mouth. In other words, that's a visual learner. We, as humans, we are visual learners. And then comes along man. Man in the law, over here, says visual learners are dumb. We, the man, we're dumb. Because we're visual. Well, my daughter, she's a visual learner. Okay? There's mathematicians that can do wonderful things of math. That's over here. There's children that can do great and wonderful things with history. About reading a book and writing something. Articulating it to the point where it sounds like it came from God. Myself and my child, we're not that good. But the law says that man made that we all must meet the standard. You remember the No Child Left Behind Act that President Bush did? Well, that harmed children with IEPs. And so the Secretary of Education had to come back in and start doing a whole lots of stuff. Well, here in Alaska, we got to opt out of the Child No Left Behind Act, and we came up with another one. We were allowed to do so. Now, here's where the assault happens with children with IEPs. If the teacher here doesn't come back to the I.E.P. staff and says, this machine or child is having a problem. Because in this, we're allowed to come together, me as the parent and people from the school district, are allowed to come together and make suggestions to the teacher. Now, this ain't a quarterly deal, and here's the part that people don't understand. An IEP is an active document. Some children need to have it weekly, some children need to have it quarterly, some children just need it yearly. My child has to require it weekly. Okay? Why does my child have to require it? Because she's a visual learner. And that's very hard for a teacher to comprehend. Why? Is because they want, and they were part of these machines, they had no problems going through school. So by not communicating, the teacher not communicating with the I.E.P staff, we can't get the help for this child in machine, or machine, however you wish to look at it right now. We can't. But the law says that this I.E.P staff has the right to know what's going on with this teacher. Now here's what happened. We didn't just first see one F. We just didn't see two Fs, three Fs, four Fs, but we saw 5 Fs at the beginning of the school year. And then I called an emergency meeting, which is my legal right as a parent. I'm not going to tell you what happened in that meeting right now, but I'm going to just kind of let you to understand is that when you see a pattern of Fs, it's because the teacher is not communicating with the I.E.P staff and is not implementing the I.E.P. See, how do you say, well, how does that matter? Well, the previous year, my daughter was in 5th grade. She was getting 3s, 4s, 4s, a 3, a 4. Now the 4 being the top, 3 being next. So when you take the records and you mirror them, you see the difference. And that's the reason why we have educational assault. Okay? There's one more thing I want you to understand about educational assault. Teachers want to be divided into 3 groups. Group 1, special. Special ed. Group 2, teachers. Normal. Group 3, high achieving. Now, the district and the law says that children that have a special educational need, children that have normal needs, and children that have high achievement needs all get a special appropriation. Now for what we're talking about with this specific teacher is this. This teacher doesn't want to have anything to do with this group or this group. She only wants to be in this box. That was admitted by one of the teachers. The problem of it is, the law says all children have to be in the same classroom. Now they can take them out for reading, math, or etc. For whatever reason. They can take out this high class student right here. They can take them out. Help them get better understanding. Move their brain a little further. They can take this child out and help catch the child up in reading, math. Here's the part that makes things even the concrete of why I get to say all of this. I had my daughter tested. And it says the following, that my child is 1 to 2 years behind because of her learning disability. Because she doesn't meet the standard that the law says they expect every child to be. So according to the standard, my child is 1 to 2 years behind. This is the most important thing that you need to understand. If the teacher doesn't reach out and allows the child to continue down this road of F, what does this do? You say, well, what does this even matter? Well, let me explain it to you like this. It's a child's psyche. The child feels that the child is not equal to these. Okay? I'm going to explain later why this, by doing this to this child, is an assault. Because that's the reason why we have dropouts. That's the reason why we have children that leave high school when they shouldn't. Because here's the thing. My daughter, last year, was in the 6th grade. And her first ding in education happened right here. Her first ding from a teacher. She didn't want to go to school. She knew that this teacher was doing wrong, but she didn't know what. And it took me several months to figure out what this teacher had done. But I'm here to tell you, this is important because here's the deal. Who gets to profit this money? The school district does. That's right. I'm going to prove that how, by allowing this to happen, the school district and the teachers can take the money that they get from us, the taxpayers, and move that money into other programs. See, that's what you guys need to understand. There's consequences for these actions. And the consequence is, if I can ding a child early enough, and start getting that child prepped for when they get to high school, that they feel that this is the class that they belong in, which is what? Not over here. Not part of the achievers. F stands for failed. Failed, 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 failed. You get enough of those, and you put enough of that kind of stuff in a child's head, and you allow that to happen. We have dropouts. I was one of them. Let me explain to you my personal story. I went to the Kenai Peninsula School District. I'm not going to name the teachers. I'm not going to name the schools. But I, as a child, starting in a very, matter of fact, below this grade, my teacher set me out my chair outside my room. That's right. We didn't have the laws to protect me. I remember days when the principal would go over and tell my teacher to put his chair back in the room. First it was my chair, then it started out to being my desk and my chair. Then it got down to the point where my clothes, my winter clothes, couldn't come in the room. The next year, I was physically assaulted by a teacher. I was slapped. I was choked. She told my parents, "Don't bring him back to this school. I don't want him in my class." Luckily, I had a principal that understood I had a right. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm a victim. See, when I got to high school, and I hit that magic number 16, my school administrator, for 2 days, didn't let me go to class, but brainwashed me into believing that I didn't belong in the system. That I had better things out there in life that I needed to go experience than education. Why? Because he could take the money that the law allowed, and he could divert it to other programs. See, there's a special date in all schools districts. It's called the head count date. So from the beginning of school all the way up to whenever your school district says, that's the cutoff date. That's when they get paid. You say, well, how do you know this? Because see, in my daughter's village, that count date is so popular. And if they want a school, they move children from village to village so that they can make sure that that happens. So that village gets to keep a school. That's how I learned about it. Well, guess what? If they can get children to bail out under the law at the age of 16, after the cutoff date, they don't have to give the money back. They get to keep the money. That's why school districts don't like for you to understand, and that's the reason why the Kenai Peninsula School District is threatening me, is because I get all of this. I understand that the fact of it is, this boils down to money. And how can I hurt a child good enough to where it doesn't even look like I caused this child at the age of 16 to give up? Ladies and gentlemen, it's by means of educational assault. That is why we have a huge drop-off rate. Let me explain this to you. If you went back to, pick any district you want to, and you got to their cutoff date, you see they have all these numbers. Great, big numbers. But after this cutoff date, you start seeing children jump. They're getting out of school. For an administrator, that's fantastic because you get to keep the money. And what you will notice is that after the cutoff date, there's a tremendous amount of children jumping out of school because school administrators know the law. Dude, you're 16. You don't belong here. And at the end of the year, they have just a few students. So let me just kind of say this to you. If the school was allowed to be paid, and I think I heard a number, so I'm just going to use this number, $15,800 per child. Okay? Well, 10 is $150,000, $58,000 per 10 students. 20 is 16, 11, $316,000. Put another 158 behind that. 0, 0, 0, 8's, 12's, 14, 7, $474,000 is what our state at one time was paying for a classroom. And if I can get out of 30 children, I can get that reduced by 10%. What can I do? Well, what's 15,800 times 3? 0, 0, 4, 2, 15, 17. That's $47,400. And that's what I got out of just one classroom. So if I can get a 10% fail rate across my district, remember this was only 3 children. 3 children. I get to divert that money however I want to, because that's what the law says I can do with it as an administrator. That's why when you see these big, huge budget cuts, you see this number right here of students, it gets big. That's right. Every time that you see an economical downturn, the districts convince their children who are 16, who've been educationally assaulted, to bail out. Go become somebody else's problem. Now they're great at giving lip service about, well, we have these new technical schools for these children. Those are additional dollars. That's correct. The law treats them separate. So if I can take 10% of my class, of my student body, and get them out of here and put them over here for the next year, because you know why this is important? Because the school district runs both programs. And the state pays more money over here per child because they call them a high-risk child. And again, it all began with what? An educational assault. See, that's the reason why you need to understand this is so important. Because this is happening every single day across America. I'm the first parent, as far as I can tell, to come out and to say, this is bad. Because I was the 16-year-old that took the bait. And that's the reason why over here we need to understand why these F's are so important. Because when a child turns 16, if the child doesn't believe in themselves, they won't go to college. There are higher risk for public assistance, higher risk for health care, free, non-taxes, back child support, social issues. And it's all because the school district allowed a teacher and defended a teacher to allow them to educationally assault this child. This is why this is important, folks. And what I'm going to explain in the next sections of these videos is how they did it. How did all of this lead to a child not longer wanting to go to school, who up to this point had been receiving 3s and 4s, 4s and 3s? Do you know why she was receiving 4s, 3s, 4s, 4s and 3s? I'm going to tell you why. Because that previous elementary school followed the I.E.P. And this child, my daughter, was excited to go to school. She loved her teachers. But until we got to the Seward Middle School, here in Seward, Alaska. The district understands this math equation. And it's time you, the public, like me, wake up and start understanding this educational assault on our children. We don't have children just because I want to say to my parents, look, I have a child, you have a grandchild. Whoopee. Our children are our most precious thing that we have. It's not your business that you have that's precious. It's not your dog. It's not your home. It's nothing. Our children is what makes us a contributor to humanity. And that's what you need to understand. It's not us out there up some mountainside looking for gold, or out there fishing looking for that big 100,000-pound fish set, or you sitting at your desk trying to figure out how to get an attaboy from your boss. I want you to understand this. Our children need us as parents to stand up and to make this to where we have rights. Because here's the thing. The school district stands behind saying this teacher has a contract. Well, let me tell you something about our district. We have a policy that says that if this teacher's caught doing this, they're automatically out. The district, Kenai Peninsula School District, doubled down and didn't implement that policy. That's right. And that's what I'm here today, is to prove that the Kenai Peninsula School District is in it for the money. They're not in it for your children. They're running the numbers game. Because the more children that they can educationally assault, the better financially it is for them. So with that, folks, take a few minutes, rewatch this section, and get to where you understand this. Matter of fact, I've decided I want to make this a standalone video. Because I want you to clearly understand the magnitude of what educational assault does. So with that, God bless, and please take a few minutes and like my Facebook page at American Children, I.E.P, and go to our YouTube channel, same American Children, I.E.P, and join us and let's get together. Now there is going to be a GoFundMe account coming up very soon. I'll explain why there's a GoFundMe account. But I want you to understand this. We as Americans need to stop the educational assault on our children. With that, thank you.